Umgar is basically forced to eat his own worms. You know,
Yes.
he's pinned down, and
He's
that's
being
actually
force-fed by the 3 shirtless worm men.
yeah, I know.
By the way,
It's fucking crazy.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
What's up, everybody? Yo, it's one fucking hour time. Of course, this is the show where we talk about one goddamn movie, and we just have one fucking hour to do it. I am Evan Husney, and to my left, we got someone it's very special because it is your birthday. It is Big T, Tom Fitzgerald's
Happy birthday.
thank you, everybody.
Yes,
Thank
happy
you, thank you.
birthday.
It's birthday boy time again.
Yes.
I think this is, we've been doing this show for a while. We've been doing birthday boy shows for a while. So this is my fourth.
Wow.
Because I start the year off. So this will be our 4th year of birthday boy time. For
Unreal.
Me and you guys,
Unreal.
Isn't that wild?
It's pretty freaking wild. And also joining us tonight for the occasion is we got Mr. Marcus Herring. What's going on?
Welcome for myself. It's your 4th birthday, but it's probably the biggest ask was having to watch this movie.
Oh my God.
The biggest present.
Come on.
I don't know.
Be honest. We've been getting letters for this whole time in the show
Letters.
for this film.
Yeah. All right. Requests have been, everybody wants us, it's not Woody Allen. It's the Worm Eaters, which is
Got
what
one message about it.
we did get one very special message about it, but that's what we're doing tonight for Tom's birthday. He picked the Worm Eaters, which we're getting into.
Now, listen.
Yeah.
We're starting up the top here. I just want to sincerely, this camera, right?
Yep. That's your
I just want to sincerely apologize to everyone who I may have hurt because of this choice of film.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes you just go for something and you make a mistake and you don't think of the consequences and that you really might be hurting some people. So for anyone who's had to watch this film and wanted to, ride along with us, I'm really sorry.
That's
It's
genuine.
liberating, actually. Now it's like, anything's possible. It really freed me up.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Going clear.
anything.
We're going
listen,
clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can.
Well, we should explain the birthday episode just for people who are new to the show. It's basically when it's your birthday here on the show, it's very simple. You get carte blanche, creative control. You get to exercise the creative control card for your birthday to pick any movie that we're going to cover for an hour, and there's no pushback from anybody else. And
No notes.
No notes. The democratic process here at One Fucking Hour goes out the window. And so Tom utilized that ability, exploited that ability to pick tonight's film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did an executive order.
0 day.
Right. So here's the thing. So we have been doing this for a while.
Right.
And this is the 4th year of Birthday Boy episodes. And I think I was seeing a bit of a slide with my pick, your guys' picks. It was sliding into like, well, I mean, what's the definition here? Like, you guys maybe have kind of covered that. Otherwise, wouldn't that maybe just be an episode? What's the daylight between the indulgence of a birthday episode choice and another episode here?
Right.
And so I decided to do what I'm calling here the One Fucking Hour Rites of Spring premiere, Stravinsky's Rites of Spring.
Okay.
Wink for everyone knows what I'm saying.
Okay.
And it's like this
Stravinsky heads out there.
Yeah. That are listening to the Worm Eaters episode.
So what happened at Stravinsky's premiere of this music piece? People were throwing chairs and screaming and getting into fistfights.
Oh.
They were rushing the stage.
Okay.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
I see.
Because it was so shocking.
Got it.
To the cultured Europeans, this really crazy avant-garde piece. So anyway, what I'm saying is virtually, I'm sure many are throwing
Yes.
chairs onto the stage and like demanding their money back and
Yes.
storming the box office. So with this choice, so that was intentional though. This was an act
Return to form.
I call recalibrate the Birthday Boy
There you go.
episode.
There you go. Yeah.
So that we can set the bar
yes.
and say, as Marcus was saying, like it's freeing, anything goes.
Yep.
Let it all hang out. Because I would say that even me who chose this, I wouldn't have ever imagined picking this
Right. Right.
in any other context.
Right,
And that's
right.
kind of the point.
Right.
You know?
And for anyone who's been listening for the past couple of weeks, we also did issue an open challenge to where if you could actually guess the episode that Tom was going to pick for his birthday, we were going to give away $200, which we did, and somebody out there actually guessed it correct. We announced that last week's episode and sent off the $200. So
Great. Checks in the mail.
checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
And, very impressed because if I can, let's get to the show, but just if I can, I think here's the whole story with this film. It's the title, because I think last year I would occasionally just throw out like the Worm Eaters.
Yeah. Right.
When I was trying to think in my head of the kind of stridently weird, obscure, obtuse film
Yeah.
that I've always liked. I really loved when I was, younger in my 20s. I was seeking out things like the Worm Eaters. So I could have mentioned another film. The Love Butcher was equally huge for us.
Oh, yeah.
The Love Butcher's really great.
We'll have to do that next year, perhaps.
Yeah, it's so cool. Maybe for Halloween. But what I'm saying is I would think of the Worm Eaters because the name itself pops.
Yes.
So if you're saying like, you know what? Sorry, I didn't watch a lot of Tarkovsky. I was too busy watching the Worm
Eaters.
Right.
Thank you.
So
anyway, I
Yeah.
think I did that twice when we were
you did. Yeah.
in that kind of context.
Someone
and
picked up
good
on it.
you.
Someone picked
for
up on
picking
it.
up on that.
And
Yeah,
now
right
they're
on.
$200 richer. And yeah, but let's definitely get to the show. One other element of the birthday show for anyone who is a fan of the show
It's the
is
ritual sacrifice. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly. That happens at the end, after the clock.
right. It's the end of
But
stick around for the end of the
right, exactly. But no, it's this is supposed to be indulgent for the birthday boy, So there's no, this is going to be Tom heavy, something that might rear its ugly head. I might reintroduce this back into the show at some point, but it won't be present for this hour. Is the old
Ooh,
spray
that's like
bottle.
a nice new deluxe one.
I know. I ordered this very bougie.
I love that.
Spray
That looks
bottle.
like it was made in like a
Yes.
3D printers.
Yeah, I know. So for those
Very nice.
longtime listeners of the show, they'll know what the spray bottle
But
means.
look, hey, you say it's Birthday Boy, it's my pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to blab a lot about the Worm Eaters. I don't know. You guys saw it too.
No,
so-
we're going to say things too. I'm
guys
just
might,
preparing everyone. This is your.
Well, right, I'm just saying, they're like, who knows? You guys might have really had a revelation. with it. I'm dying to hear your take on it, actually, because I think I'm assuming you both have never seen it.
No.
No.
God, no. All right.
seen
it.
Well, we'll get into it. But before we get into it, I do want to give a special shout out to the One Fucking Hour Patreon, yo. Patreon.com/onefuckinghour is where you can sign up for just $5 a month. It's the best way to support the show, and you get instant access to all of our bonus eps. You get the audio commentary tracks that we've recorded and 24-hour early access to every show, so you can be the coolest kid in school, getting the day lead on all of these breaking new eps. And if you want all your bonus content to live on YouTube instead of Patreon, you can go to our channel homepage on YouTube, find the join button, click that. Same price, same perks, $5 a month there as well. Doesn't matter to us. We appreciate your support. You choose what you want to do if you want to sign up. And we appreciate you. $5 a month, either patreon.com/onefuckinghour or become a Momen of the YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody. We have a new bonus episode that we need to get to, and I'm sure we'll have in short order. But yeah, appreciate all you guys that signed up this far. It's been very fun.
Absolutely.
So
We got to restock the coffers after giving away $200 to the.
Yeah.
yes, we do. We do. We'll do. We do. Absolutely. So okay, are you guys ready for this? Are you fucking ready?
I am. Let's hit the clock, and I want to hear the synopsis you have.
Okay.
The synopsis you dug up. Yeah,
Right,
I got to
right.
hear this.
Okay. Yeah, the Criterion Channel synopsis forthcoming.
Right.
Okay, here we go. And let's see. The clock will be starting. Now, okay, the worm eaters. Here is the synopsis I found on the interwebs is okay. Hermann Umgar, a German hermit, has an ability to communicate with worms. One day, the mayor of the town runs him off his property, so in revenge, he plants worms in everybody's food in the town that this film takes place in. Yeah. However, these worms are a special breed of mutant worms from the Red Tide. And when people eat them, they are transformed into giant worms themselves, something that does happen a little ways into the film. Mm-hmm. These worm people also become Herman's slaves. What will the remaining do? So a little cliffhanger, spoiler-free action there at the end. So that is a worm eaters, but that's just that's an internet synopsis.
See, listen, I've always said, you're in good shape when you describe the plot synopsis and it sounds like the scribblings of a mental patient. You know?
I know.
and I really mean that. It's like, and then the worm people get impregnated, and then they grow.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's what we are.
But so that's that's an internet synopsis. But Tom, I think you got to give. I'm sure a lot of people didn't do the pre-watch on this. Maybe they did. But tell us, what is the Worm Eaters? What's the vibe of it? Like, give us some more color onto the synopsis here.
Yeah, sure. So, all right. Well, so it's 1977. And if you're watching, if you want to watch a movie in the weekend, you and your significant other, you're like looking in the paper, like, hey, what's playing? It's 1977. It's like July or something, and it's like you're looking in the paper, like, oh yeah, I heard about Star Wars. Okay, we could do Star Wars, and it's like, oh, but what starts in 20 minutes? The Worm Eaters. And so, now what I'm getting at here is that yes, this was briefly a film that was playing theaters. You could see it. Yep. Which is in itself insane. I was thinking about this, like, part of the insanity of this film is its a very existence.
Right.
Like the fact that Prince were like some driver, like drove all night and got there at dawn, waited outside the theater, brought over the reels, they were inspected.
One sheets were mailed.
Popcorn was made. The marquee, like WOR, and so and it was all for this exercise in an absurdity that is even more than what's promised by the title. You know what I mean? And so this film was made by Herb Robbins, who's a very he's minor of the minor character people in the showbiz and exploitation stuff. The film is produced though by a real legend.
Yep.
A real mogul, which is Ted V. Michaels.
Right.
TV Michaels.
Right.
We could talk about him a little bit more later, but he was a friend of Herb, and he he bankrolled this thing because he had, Michaels made a lot of all his movies were kind of big, like Blood, Orgy of the She-Devils, and all that kind of stuff.
Astro Zombies.
So he had a bankroll, and he just went, I like Herb. He's funny. He's kind of nutty. Here's, $80,000.
Yeah, right.
Make a movie.
Yeah, right.
So that's the kind of world we're in. And if I might, I just want to kind of preface this with like, what I also love about this film is that it's part of this scene. As I said before, it's Ted V. Michaels was friends with and bankrolled this film. Ted V. Michaels is a legend of the underground world of exploitation. He's an exploitation movie character. But the thing is, Herb Robbins got started in Ray Dennis Steckler films.
Yeah.
Another legendary figure.
Yeah.
He was in The Thrill Killers. He's in the very weird LSD drenched sex film, Cynthia the Devil's Doll.
Yep.
He plays the devil, and that's a Ray Dennis Steckler film. Quite weird. He was friends with Titus Moody. Titus Moody's another marginal character of the Ray Dennis Steckler universe, let's call it. And Titus Moody made an insane film called The Dirtiest Game in Town, which is violently psychotically insane sex film. So these guys are all very crazy,
weirdos,
like character weirdos, and they all kind of like banded together.
Yeah,
and they all support each other from the mid '60s and all the way into the '80s.
It's weird,
and they all moved into like SOV. By the way, I love that. Like, as the '80s went on, and no one could really bankroll like film prints and like stuff like that. like they just hit the camcorder and they all had insane, SOV films, including our guy tonight, Herb Robbins. He only made one other film out of the Worm Eaters. He made Brain Sucker, which was announced in 1977, but wound up being a 1988 SOV, which looks really, really psychotic.
Oh shit, I gotta check that out.
Like on par with our film tonight. So anyway, I just want to paint the picture that I don't know anything otherwise really about Herb Robbins.
Just for people who may be somewhat familiar with these players, the Ray Dennis Steckler, was he in, or did he have something to do with making, what was that movie where, what's that, really long title? The
Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies.
There you go. Right. He's associated. Did he make that, or was he in it, or what's the?
Oh no, that's a Steckler film.
It is, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's a Steckler film. And then around that time, he also did the black and white film of The Thrill Killers,
right,
which features Herb Robbins prominently.
Okay.
Like he's, I think, the main heel.
Right. So Herb Robbins, the filmmaker behind The Worm Eaters, was an associate, I guess, or a collaborator of Ray Dennis Steckler.
And if you say, and I'm realizing that when you say like associate of, it really just means they're buddies.
They're buddies,
because Herb and Ted were just buddies.
Right.
And so it's really just like crazy people behind the camera, and they're all pals, and they all are like helping each other out. They're like, I'm making an insane film. Cool, I'll help you. Like, and then you can help me on my insane film. That's
right.
That's
it is so weird that they're all mixed in there together. Like Steckler did Body Fever. Herb Robbins is in that. Coleman Francis is in that. Who's also like another movie director. Yeah. So it's like it's this whole world of these films that I grew up with. This being just on Mystery Science Theater. Like Ted V. Michaels is like a MST3K MVP. He's got like at least four movies that are on there, and then Coleman Francis has got a bunch. It's so funny that they all knew each other, and there's this little sub
circle
of like
underground,
low budget underground, exploitation / horror / everything filmmakers that
exploitation freaks,
and
they all just have like wild personalities. I mean,
right.
They like Ted is a legendary figure, and maybe you can flesh that out a little bit, Marcus. He was at the castle and everything.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's tons of docs about him because he's a real magnetic character, and he's got this mustache, and kind of Elvis hairdo, and he lived in a castle in L.A. for years and had all these he had like different, like at least at every time he'd have like 8 wives that lived with him. And he called them the castle ladies. Whoa. And I guess over the course of 15 years, he had like 60 different women that were coming through and lived this sort of, he put them in their movies, and he put the women in the movies, and they made films together, and they all really admired him. And it was people like, I don't think, what was her name? Tura Satana. She was like, she wasn't one of the ladies, but she was in that scene.
Tura Satana's daughter is an extra in the Worm Eaters.
Right. That's
I didn't even say like there's Russ Meyer stuff too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Russ. Yeah. Yeah, he's a real interesting character, and he just kind of pops up. The fact that there's so many documentaries about him, and you could tell he was just one of those people that like. The world kind of revolved around his little world revolved around him, right? Totally. Like Tom, you always point out people that are like a center, and like they kind of and people kind of gravitate towards them. And he could scrape up money for the projects.
He's
kind of
definitely one of those.
Yeah,
sure. So
it's pretty inspiring in a way to be that kind of person.
No, totally. And well, actually, funny enough, I hung out with Lynn Margulies, who's most famous for being the widow of Andy Kaufman, and she was one of the gals of the castle for a while. And she told me,
castle lady.
I don't think she committed, but she would hang out at the castle in the early 70s. And she was telling me like, pretty wild. Like, so it was cool to hear about that. Like, but she really liked him though. She thought Ted was awesome and cool and crazy.
Cool.
Yeah. Really a real character.
Well, one thing.
So that's the guy that's the mogul.
Yeah.
It is sort of like a Mondo world, alternate universe, Hollywood, Well, so he's Francis Ford Coppola. And Herb Robbins is George Lucas. Okay.
Right.
There we go. I was waiting for that. Yeah. Keep your hand on that button.
I got it. It's over here. We got it.
I'm kidding.
No, but what I wanted to say is because we mentioned it earlier, just to kind of bring it back to the movie, is, the Worm Eaters, this is, just so we're saying it, so you understand, this is an insane film made by an insane person, yes. And that's a very interesting experience one can have, and an experience we just had.
It's a very rare, beautiful thing.
It is.
And actually, there is a quote. I said it, I think, to lead up last week.
Yes.
I found it in an old newspaper article. There's a very brief blurb of Herb Robbins, and he says, "I'm a freak, and I want freaks to see this movie."
Love that.
About the worm eaters, and it's like it's really he's really
it's
planting the flag in the sand there. Like here we go. Like I'm a freak, and I made a freak movie.
Yeah, it's free. It's for freaks by freaks kind of thing. And And what's interesting is, these guys that you're talking about that made these films, they are kind of, it is a 42nd Street drive-in sort of strange film, world these guys are all playing in, the schlock that, was sort of around in the 60s, of course, and going into the 70s. But what's interesting, and I saw this name come up a lot in terms of, researching the worm eaters, was John Waters, is somebody who bursts onto the scene and, with Pink Flamingos in the, early to mid 70s. And like this, I think for them must have been pretty liberating to see, because it's like, here's a guy who's making these trash films, but he's an artist, and he's getting that sort of recognition, from
he's playing Uptown.
He's playing Uptown, right? And I think these guys. I actually read. I don't know if this is corroborated, but I heard that the Worm Eaters was inspired by Waters. Did you know that at all, or is that?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
That wouldn't surprise me necessarily.
Okay.
But so it is kind of like the circle of life is what you're saying too, because like
eating gross stuff. Is that what it is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm inferring from that. It's like a freak shock gimmick. It's a Carney bit. Like watch the guy. Eat a bunch of worms in this booth in the the sideshow.
Yeah. These are the geeks.
There is that spirit.
These are the geeks, who are doing it in this.
It's
movie.
It's geek movies,
It's
and then
geek
they
time.
saw a guy do good, And I have seen though, the one time I saw this, I was like 20 years old. I didn't think of it, but since I've been looking it up on the internet, a lot of people reference not as a direct influence, but they say it feels a lot like John Waters. And I know what they're saying when I was rewatching it. There's all these broad, horrible human beings yelling inane thing.
Tell this ugly, stupid man that you're going to buy out the whole place and kick him out if we don't get better service from now on.
Oh, calm down, Mildred, for God's sake.
Yes,
Like where where's my Nilla wafers? Like it's like don't you have any hot dogs, man? It's like hillbilly nightmare vaudeville.
Yes.
So
right.
I could see the kinship there. I don't know if there's necessarily any direct relationship or influence, of Waters to the Worm Eaters, but. So let's move forward a little bit. Like
one more thing on that,
please,
just real quick before I move on from John Waters, just something to point out too is like maybe if it wasn't directly inspired by, it's kind of born of a similar maybe concept, because John Waters said of many times about the end of or that scene in Pink Flamingos, the infamous dog shit eating scene, is that that came from the question. What can we do that is guaranteed to get attention that hasn't been done yet and isn't illegal, is the infamous question.
Exactly.
And I do feel like Worm Eaters is sort of born from a similar mindset of this idea. Because, people eating worms, which is seen, the title promises it, right? And boy, does it deliver. And,
I wanted to say a few things. Number one, right off the bat, I was listening to the commentary of Michaels, the producer, and he said no worms were injured. And if you do look very strangely at the worm eating close-ups of the mouths, they're never fully following through on a mastication, and it's just they're rolling around a worm with their bite of hot dog. And so and they're eating in the most. And look, we're getting maybe ahead of ourselves a little bit, but so it is a form of pornography though. And I have a note here that says a new pornography ? Because it is shot. Yep. I don't think it would be like a parody of pornography, but it is the same idea of pornography where it's just
gratuitous
20 minutes of just insert shots of genitalia coupling together.
Yep.
And it's just stark and it's close up and the camera just sits there exploitively, just like look at this. And in this film, instead of genitals interlocking, you see people eating. Now, eating becomes a demented Martian thing in the Worm Eaters, because eating, the act of eating, as represented in this film, is not just bizarre because there's worms intermingled with the ice cream and the fried chicken, but like they're eating this way. This is how people are eating in this film. Worms are not. They're eating and their mouths are going like this and all the food is spilling out and it's to the sides. And it's like, because he has to exaggerate, because you could make it very demure. It could just be like, oh, I'm having a bite of chicken, closed mouth, chewing. But it's like, I am eating, and it's like grotesque.
That is like porno, like you're saying.
It is.
And like their tongues are rolling the food that they haven't really eating. It's just kind of in their mouths, so that you can see the worms intermingling with the pieces of hot dog. Ladies and gentlemen,
this is the breakdown that everyone was waiting for. Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
Well done.
And there are several scenes that are lingering close-ups of people. I'll call it like faux eating, or stunt eating.
Right.
And then they also are rolling around, living and continuing to live worms.
Yes.
There's no worms were injured in this film.
No, I know. Yeah, it's just
They like the worms.
Is that one at the end that's like standing up though, and he's got like
love
a
that
paper
one.
clip shoved up him or something? I guess no worms were hurt, as long as I think because if you cut one in half, it makes two, right?
Right.
And so,
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, is that? Yeah,
Not
but I
really
mean, none were actually eaten, and that's sort of the irony of this film.
The irony, but
So-
man,
all right, so
your
there's-
brain,
there's
the theater
this
of
is
the
by the way-
mind. I'm just saying.
this is a special episode. This is a 2-hour episode, so there's so much to cover here.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
special double episode. Okay, so
Okay.
let me actually just go back to Birthday Boy.
Yes.
Year one here.
Yep.
I saw this film, but I was like 20 years old,
Mhm.
and me and my friends were nuts, and we were nuts for nuts movies. Longtime watchers and listeners probably are familiar with this. I've said this before. Our favorite film was Cracking Up, actually.
Moment.
Yep.
There you go. A quote from the movie. So we were always looking for the hard stuff. We were smoking pot all the time, did acid like plenty, drinking acid. We were just always loaded. And we wanted, when we watched movies, they could not be regular movies.
Right.
Like just boring, like fuck you. Like no. It had to be like this. So we were going for the harder stuff. We're always like, oh man, you see The Love Butcher? Like, no, but not yet. But boy, did you see Sometimes Aunt Martha Does Dreadful Things? Dude, Stanley, So we were like always just like looking for the hard stuff. So we stumbled at one point onto The Worm Eaters. So me and my friend Gary actually were watching this one night. He was really drunk. Like he came in, I started watching. He came in from being out. He was very drunk. And he didn't even know what the hell was going on. He was so disoriented because he didn't even know. I never even told him like, hey, this is The Worm Eaters. It was just like something was on and he was in hysterics. And what we were liking was the sort of LSD logic of a film like this. And one of the things that we responded to then and I respond to now is like, there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of plot and there's a lot of dialogue. And it is kind of like John Waters in that way. There's always a lot of all those things. But everything is so wrong. Everybody's saying really wrong things. It's like almost like a soap opera, but everything's screwed up and like there's weird flash cuts and edits and music cues and like non sequiturs. And it's just like, it's like a disorienting kind of like LSD absurdist rendering of reality is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And we were also very into Firesign Theater. You guys are familiar with that. We would just sit back and listen to those big, crazy long albums, like the Don't Crush the Dwarf. That album's really nuts. And this kind of humor is what we were into at the time. Later on, about 10 years later, Mr. Show was what we were looking for. Like because we were into a kind of comedy. I was into a kind of comedy that was Worm Eaters comedy. Which is really hard. It's a hard, you can't really do you can't do like stand up, like get the fuck out of here. It had to be like Worm Eaters level. And honestly, Mr. Show was Worm Eaters level. When it gets really good. Like there's this moment in the great scene in Mr. Show, I was thinking about the other day, where there's an insane job interview and Dave's interviewing with Bob for a job and he gets the job and he goes, oh, cool. And then Bob leaves, you got the job. And then Dave, who just got the job, goes, oh, cool. And he starts loosening his tie. And he's like, all right, I got the job. Here we go. And then he just starts taking off all of his clothing. And he's completely
right.
Like, is that funny?
Yeah,
like, it's just so, and they're stoned and fucking crazy too back at the time. So anyway, long story short, what I'm getting at is like, this is a comedy, and I think it succeeds in one layer on its own terms because Herb Robbins is crazy, and it's inherently an insane like plot, as we were saying with the synopsis, and it's executed insanely, but it's also executed crudely and somewhat ineptly. Back to cracking up.
Right.
Cracking up. The concepts are insane, and then they're executed crudely and kind of poorly.
Right.
And that was to us like the fucking crack cocaine of insane movies you're watching when you're coming down from LSD, because it is reality, but it's all destroyed. And like, why is this person saying this? And like, what is going on? And this film has that kind of moment cracking up feel where it's like, oh, okay, now there's the three fishermen are back, and now they're shirtless, and they're making these proclamations about like a new world of worm people. And it's like,
we did not die. When we ate the fish we caught with your tenure worms, they took over our lifeblood, and we became like this. Not man, not worm. The worms took over our bodies.
Sure.
And it also has...
And that's what I was looking for. And this delivered.
And it also is sort of a very, all thumbs kind of approach to making a comedy where none of the, timing lands, none of the punchlines land, and just kind of it's kind of a... It's an anti-comedy, but it's an unintentional anti-comedy.
Right.
And
it's anti-comedy... all thumbs, which is like a very
twisted,
rarefied, weird place.
It's a weird place. It's usually someone who doesn't really know what they're doing, I guess, when they're making a film.
That's and I'll leave it at this. See, the thing is, there's a lot of crazy movies and a lot of crazy movies we loved back then, but like for instance, like Sometimes Aunt Martha, for instance, I just brought that up. That is ostensibly a horror film, a slasher film, with some weird subtext weirdness going on.
Yeah.
But it's not a comedy.
Right.
And all I'm trying to say here, my premise is the most destroyed films are like comedies made by crazy people who don't really know what they're doing. Just like,
they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. And there's that glaring thing that pops into your head when you're watching something like this is, who the fuck is this for? Like, who is this movie for? You. Yeah, exactly right.
Audience of one.
Audience of one. Yeah. So,
I hope you guys liked it. So,
it did take me back to, I hadn't thought about this type of movie in a while. And it did take me back to a time where I like, watching Blood Freak. Yeah. And like, that is
another
favorite.
One.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. And that is kind of another like genreless horror parody Christian. What is this movie and who is it for? And
right.
It's also queasy and disconcerting, like Worm Eaters. And it did take me back to an era where that was the movies that I watched too, and and just getting back and thinking about Ted too, and like Astro Zombies is like a Misfits song, and the Corpse Grinders was a punk band, and there was a time when like all this type of film
was hip.
Yeah, it was
trash.
hip.
It was called trash.
Yeah. And it was hip though. I mean,
it was du jour. And like Lars said, it did kind of run out after Grindhouse, after that Tarantino movie. It kind of killed this era, for a long time. Because before that, in the 90s, all this shit was cooking surf music and trash movies and stuff, and it was really bumping. But it took me back, so I had a great time watching it.
It's very psychotronic.
This is a psychotronic film.
Definitely.
And it was, of course, in the Psychotronic Encyclopedia. I saw as a kid. Now, just if I'm just going over some notes here. One thing I did notice that there is a relatively conventional. This is a representation that's relatively conventional of a genre of the 70s. And I was thinking about it. It's that Willard kind of movie.
I was going to say that.
Oh, okay.
I was going to bring up Willard.
Just to be clear, like there's also the movie Stanley, and there's there's the girl with the Jennifer, I think, has the snakes.
Yes,
and it's like a Carrie ripoff.
Yeah.
So it's of that type, but again, it's so wrong because lots of rats is freaky, but like lots of worms.
Yeah, it's a guy.
Night of the Lepus.
it's a guy who
no, not elitist. What I'm saying is, it's an outsider loner person.
who trains,
who bonds with their animal.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they're their best friends, and then they sick their best friends
on other people. Yeah, exactly.
the villains.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And that's what came to mind was Willard 100%. Because you
It's very
see
Willard.
in this movie. Now let's also not bury the lead. Holy shit.
Okay.
It took us, I can't believe this long to mention this, but the star of this film is the director, not a shock. Herb Robbins plays Herman Umgar, that German hermit. Umgar.
With a club foot.
Yeah, with a club foot.
And he's always muttering and puttering. Now, back to cracking up. When I was rewatching this last night, I said, "What? This reminds me of nothing except some scenes from fucking cracking up." It's as if Jerry Lewis was dropped into a John Waters film.
Yes.
You know, like
80s Jerry
he's-
Lewis. Yeah.
He's like talking to his he's like making jokes to himself, like, "Oh, you're my favorite worm today. Like, why aren't you talking to me?" And it's like very destroyed Jerry, especially in cracking up the scene where he's the French prisoner. If that resonates with anybody,
Yeah, I don't know if it will.
but if you're a big cracking up fan, you know what I'm saying.
Well, we should
we'll
say-
cut to it briefly.
Yeah, but right. And but
I am making the dummy that looks just like moi.
But we should also say that, for people who don't know, Cracking Up, Tom's first original birthday episode, it's in the archives. So if you're wondering what we're referencing, go way back to like episode 18 or something. Is
It's
Cracking
a
Up.
totemic
Tom,
reference on the show.
It's
Right,
totemic.
Tom reference.
Well, I mean, that's what the source of Momen.
Right. It is totemic in some ways.
There you go.
But
There it is. Yeah.
But anyway, so I wanted to
sometimes
clarify.
the sound mix is nuts. There's some there are some cracking up moments. Like there's a time where the sound mix is so weird. Like when the woman is first transforming into the worm. And she's shouting something, and he's murmuring something. And there's like synth bleeps and bloops going on. And I can't understand what anyone's saying, and it goes on a really long time.
It's very
And
disorienting. It's disorienting and long-winded. Yeah,
A lot of this is, and
It's
a lot
so
of it,
acid.
Yeah, it is, and like a lot of it, is the director playing this German hermit, and he's pontificating for these very long times. He's having full dialogues and discourses with his pet worms. He's got a little like kind of
named. All the worms are named.
They're all named, and he's got like a little sort of castle terrarium, for them where they're kept, and he's breeding them, and then
It's like a dollhouse kind of world.
yeah, and for what little plot this film has, I guess we should just say, this character Umgar lives.
There's actually a lot of plot.
Well, no, there is, but the setup
Yeah.
is that he has a shack, or he lives in this house or whatever, and I guess this land, is something that the town wants to develop on.
It's
correct?
prime real estate condos.
Right. Right.
It's that plot contrivance.
It is, which works, and there is some social commentary, I'm sure the directors would say, that's present in this film. And they're basically trying to get him out of his land. They're trying to steal his, deed to his house.
Right.
And
It's
so
inherited by his father and from his father.
His house has that like tower, and that's
Yes.
kind of mirrored in the worm terrarium.
It
or
is,
whatever, right?
yeah.
That's weird.
it is.
Oh, yeah, I never realized that.
To give him they get their own tower, I guess. And then, it's crazy. And then this whole film is kind of like the different attempts and ways that they're trying to get around him and getting his land. And there's like women that infiltrate the space and share meals with him. And I don't know. It's
Because he looks like he's rich. Yeah, like horrible ethnic comedy, like bad accent,
Yes,
broad.
there's that
like
too.
like it's like Borscht Belt vaudeville time too. Sometimes it's very weird.
Yeah.
So it's all destroyed. But
I
actually,
read that.
Go ahead.
I just read that Ted Michaels' like dad was from like Czech Republic or something,
Oh,
and he changed his name from like Mikulovic to
I saw
Michaels.
that. Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering, if that was the Eastern European
Well,
immigrant story.
Herb Roberts is Herb Rabinowitz.
Oh yeah, right. There you go.
He's maybe a first generation Jewish person.
Yeah, very personal.
Maybe let's actually get into this. This is the serious part of the Worm Eaters. So I read there was a pretty good write-up on Letterboxd about how someone was breaking up that there's this weird sort of European other foreign communist in the form of our lead character, Herb Robbins' character, the Worm Eater, against like normie, ugly, hyper-capitalist, hyper-consumerist Americans. They're obnoxious. Right. And they want to get him and take the property, and he's got more soul and like salt of the earth, and he's more like a communist outsider, foreigner in this world of gross, all American hot dog eating assholes,
right?
And that is, I mean, it can't be an accident. Like there's a through line throughout the whole film about that. Where like
satire.
Like what I mean is an observation. It's like our antagonists. Are pretty broad, are pretty clearly drawn. The antagonists, like there's actually a Ku Klux Klan reference.
I know,
which is very weird and interesting.
It is
there's first of all there's this group called like Group M or something. What is it like?
Yeah,
M group,
something like that. Yeah, cult.
It's this gross group of like basically like a kind of neo-Nazi.
Yeah,
kind of like missing the days of lynching. That's kind of that's referenced.
It is, yeah.
And they're there, and one guy's very angry, and he's a Vietnam veteran. And he just wants to kill, and he's got a lot of hostility. And even the woman in the group is like let's fucking get him. Like there's a lot of ugliness and like mean cruelty, and they're all organized against him. And there's a scene where they happen to be wearing, guess what? Pointy white
Klan
robes,
outfits, yeah,
as they try to go up into the tower and burn down his place, his worm place. And the cut after you seeing them basically dressed exactly like Ku Klux Klan members is the black woman who's featured in this film. And I was just like, whoa, what is going on here?
Oh, yeah.
So there's some stuff there. So there's definitely something going on. But here's one of the things I noticed. This is how I wouldn't really want to get into Worm Eaters seriously, like in a show. But this is the moment, these kinds of moments that elevate it, where I do think something kind of special is going on. At one point, our Worm Eater Herb guy, he's driving around town, and across the street he sees, it's someone horribly, viciously beating someone on the street. And then he like turns the corner, and on this other street, there's these other people all fighting and beating each other up.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like, at the end of Wild at Heart, when like he's wandering around in that kind of stockyard area, where he's about to get beat up by the punks. Like he sees this guy who's like, he just gets into an accident and he was in a wheelchair, and he's like, this already happened to me. Does anybody know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know.
At the end of Wild at Heart,
of course, yeah.
And it's like it's like what I'm saying is like random acts of violence, of seething hostility, like in your small town, and you're seeing it like distantly from across the street. So it's kind of you're distanced from it, but it's felt. And it's like, what's going on there? Like,
and it's not just a random moment either. They did it twice. You have to go set up the shot and do it. And it's super intentional.
Yeah, there is
show the hostile world around.
Like, what the hell is going on there?
As like as gross out.
One is in front of a church. The beating.
Yeah,
that's right.
As gross out and nonsensical as this movie often is. It definitely, there are moments where you feel like it has something on its mind, that its creator is probably trying to make some sort of social commentary, about the things you were talking about, the hot dog eating Americans and the sort of foreigners coming in, and
capitalism, greed,
because all that
he's sort of saved by like the left wing youth protesters, right?
That's right. That's true.
Yes, exactly.
That's true.
Like, I don't know what hippie is, but
with hippie.
No, and again, just one last person. Because what I was trying to say before is like the antagonists in this film are very fleshed out. And how about one character who's pretty scary, and he's at the meeting, frothing at the mouth, getting angry, let's kill. Is the priest of the town,
Yeah.
who's dressed like an ancient Jesuit with like a
Yes.
scary black robe with a hood, and he has a lot of anger, and he's like, of course, he's a lech, and he's grabbing a girl's ass in the ice cream store. You know?
Right.
So it's like there's that hypocrisy thing of like it's like Buñuel or something.
Yeah,
like that.
right. It is. I bet he was mildly inspired by that for sure. I would be surprised.
Buñuel, yeah,
maybe catching.
I would not be surprised
catching those screenings of that shit. But also like again, it looks like it's made for about $10 often, this movie. But there are these little moments of where some filmmaking is on display. If I'm being kind, particularly, and it's pretty demented, like this, I could see this as like a set piece in like a Dusan Makiev movie or something.
Okay.
Like where
I'm listening. Yeah.
Where there's that one scene, and it's got amazing depth of field too. It feels like a scene out of The Swimmer or something too.
Okay.
When he's frolicking around in the grass, and finds the one worm out there, and the worm is on the palm of his hand, and he's dancing with the worm.
Well, and that kind of like music box.
Yeah, the music box
music is playing.
Yep.
It's like a love theme.
Yep.
And he starts like I think it's slow motion. He's like
slow motion,
spinning around with his worm in love.
It's like a man and his worm, and it works.
That is very Dusan Makavayo, actually. Like that's very sweet, specifically sweet movie.
Yeah. And it kind of reminded me. It kind of reminded me. But then, as soon as that kind of cool moment, that kind of, I don't know, I sat up for it a little bit, and then of course it gets back to the kazoos and the ragtime and all the crazy
slide whistles
and all that
piano.
stuff.
But if I might, I'm going through some notes I have here, but like this is the kind of little thing that reminded me of underground comics and hippie stoner humor, and specifically back to Firesign Theater. When it's sometimes it cuts around to the whole town and gets like a view of what's going on in the town. Yeah. And at one point, the woman who's like very strident about progress in the town meeting, like she's part of the evil gang of people. Like it just cuts to her arm wrestling and like drinking whiskey with a guy, and it's like it's. I'm looking at the still of it right now. Like, what kind of set piece is that? Where she's like kind of being butch, and it's like, yeah, let's fucking arm wrestle and drink whiskey. Like, it's just another day in the office for her. Like, what world is she? What's her, like, I want her movie, And of course, though, she is arm wrestling with Ted V. Michaels.
Yeah, that's right.
So it does a little cameo.
Yep.
But sorry, I'm going through some notes here. But another little thing, I fucking forgot. There's just these little touches that are really great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'll just fill in real quick and say that I love how disorienting it is and confusing right off the bat. Like I had to start it over because the first two scenes back to back, I was just so lost and confused. It's like
the reel's been switched.
Yes.
The opening scene's like, I don't know, some guys fishing in the dark or something. And then her with like a hook and a worm, and I don't really know what was happening in that, but it's setting up something for later, I guess. And then it immediately cuts to the mayor and somebody discussing the background behind the property and stuff.
I know.
It feels like you started in the middle.
I know.
Like deeds. I know. No, but just let me just give you another little example.
And that guy's delivery. That fucking okay, so it's the mayor, and he's talking to this guy Max, I believe, about the dam and the property. And and that guy's delivery, he sounds like he's being overdubbed, but he's not. And he's almost doing like a Riccio style kung fu movie, delivery where it's the other guy.
The other guy.
It's so really over the top. I'm gonna cut to it right now.
Well, now you may not want to talk about it, but every time somebody looks at that mud hole out there, all they think about is when that dam broke and Umgar's old man was drowned. Now you remember that.
It's a very vivid character, yeah. But I want to just give you one other little example of like sometimes they do this panorama of like what's going on in this insane town.
Yeah.
And it's at the end of the film when because in this narrative here, he puts worms in everybody's food, fried chicken, ice cream, chewing tobacco, whiskey, and the arm wrestling. And at one point, this woman wakes up and is like, "Hey, let's have some food or whatever." And she grabs this jar of kumquat jam.
And I made his favorite jam, kumquat jam. That's what I made, all right. Kumquat jam.
Let's have some kumquat jam. And then this is why I love this film. she just looks and goes like, kumquat. That's such an awful name. A fruit. Like, why would you call it kumquat?
Yeah.
And then, of course, she's destroyed by a worm man, you know.
Oh, the worm man.
And then there's like a splattering of kumquat jam. No, but it's just like that kind of thing. I remember we were really howling at that. And I've got one more little anecdote. This was what was getting us howling when we were stoned and drunk. Was like, it just feels like an underground comic or something, like kumquat. What's that? You know?
Yeah.
Fernwood Tonight or something. You guys know what I mean?
Yes,
but there's one other little thing, and I remember this distinctly. Me and my friend Gary were losing it. It was the very end of the film, and they just show a truck driver in the morning, and he's driving, and he's ultimately going to drive right into Herb turning into a worm person. But this, I'm going to describe to you simply what the behavior of this truck driver is in the morning.
Yes, I knew it.
You don't know this person. It's the first time you're seeing him. Yep. He's driving. He looks at this like tomato or an orange or something, and he starts just like eating it insanely.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to eat it with 3 bites, like a big tomato or an orange. He's like, and it falls apart in his hand, all over his mouth. And he goes, yuck. And he throws it out the window. And then he just looks at his big muscle. He makes a muscle.
Oh, yeah. He's like,
he's like, fuck yeah. Like, it's so like America, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Something it's like, I'm going to fucking eat the shit out of this tomato. I'm like, tomato. And I'm big and I got muscles. And I'm telling you, that is commentary of like a foreign-minded person looking at like a typical dumb American, like, I'm going to eat fucking food and it sucks and fucking working it out really hard, you know. Like, am I wrong? Like,
no, we're still like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, like, what is that in that film? Like, it's nonsensical and surreal and funny in a really deep, weird way. That's pure intention.
It is.
It's very garbled, but it is some kind of commentary.
I'm going to say something.
It's very garbled and mangled. Yeah, you can't tell. There's something going on. There's some intention, but it's
a cartoony sort of performance, like a very Looney Toony kind of way of performing.
Yes.
And, and I can only speak on experience for this because it does remind me, and I don't mean this as a diss and I don't mean it as a compliment either, really.
Okay.
Right. But it does remind me the way that Lloyd Kaufman would direct, you know? Like,
I know exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's this very totally. Because I've saw it with my own 2 eyes. It's this like exaggerated, big-eyed, performative cartoon that you're turning everything into. And I think they're cut from a similar cloth. And I think that's also like, a similar generation, people that probably grew up on, because, one thing I noticed right out of the bat was looking at the poster of the film or the VHS cover or whatever, that's gotta be just Mad Magazine. That's what they're, emulating that style. And I appreciated that because I do think that there is some Mad Magazine quality to this movie.
I was thinking of Mad too. I think, the guys like that were coming of age when Mad was big. And also, I'm really glad you mentioned this, like comic books, Looney Tunes, because I was thinking it is sort of well, I've always said about Cracking Up, back to that, is that it's someone trying to render a live action Looney Tunes, but it's in slow motion.
It's Quaalude tunes.
It's Quaalude. But like, and by the way, the visual thing. Let's not forget the incredible title sequence.
I was going to say,
that was done by one of the Castle Bunnies.
It's amazing. Wow,
Teddy
really?
Michaels Castle Girls. Is that what they're called? Marcus?
The Castle Ladies. Yeah,
Castle Ladies, and she did the stuff. You can see her in she's in like all the Ted movies, and she drew. Here's. I'm sure we're going to cut to it, but like, what's your favorite? My favorite is the plate of spaghetti being held up by the worms with one triumphant worm at the top of the spaghetti, like holding his arms up with a side of grated cheese next to it.
Yes, right. They're amazing. They're amazing.
Or the worm wrapping around a hot dog with a big American flag in the background.
Yes,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's really
cool.
Right
off the bat, kind of getting you
in the song.
I did like the song the first time I heard it in the very beginning.
Yeah, which is
prepare you for the zaniness.
The song is, what is it?
Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me.
Guess I'll go eat worms.
Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. Guess I'll go eat worms. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. Guess I'll go eat worms.
Yeah, that's like an old kid.
Yeah, it's
school
like,
song.
Is it? Nobody likes me.
Sounds like
Everybody hates me. Pretty crazy.
Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Can we just talk about this for a second? Because it literally is that moment.
The new
when,
mythology.
No, we'll get to that. Well, maybe that is what this is. But what I wanted to, I don't know. Just to me, it's like, I'm watching this fucking movie, and I'm really grossed out by the voluntarily, but I'm really queasy and feeling uneasy about the worm eating. Did
Raimi watch it with you?
No, okay. Raimi is deathly afraid of worms. So when I told her about this, it was like she couldn't be near it. She was out of the house when I watched it.
Don't say that word.
Yeah, exactly. No. So this was very bad, very bad. But anyway, I'm watching this fucking movie, and there's a lot of points in which I'm like, the fuck is this, right? Obviously. But really, when everything was kind of like peaking for me is near the end when, everything, all hell's kind of breaking loose, I guess you could say, with the worms appearing everywhere and everything. But it's just that's the shots of like the 2 to 3 guys, wearing these kind of sleeping bag half worm parts, and they're just like
I'm looking at that image right now, and that is one of the stills of all time.
It is
psychotic,
like
LSD.
What are you making?
Glowworm.
It's like, again, I'll describe it right now. It's like, as I'm looking at it, 3 shirtless men, middle-aged men, wearing their bottom half are worms. So really, they're like worm men.
Yeah,
like
worm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So their second half is gigantic worms.
Yeah.
But not only that, they're shirtless, kind of middle, like 40-year-old guys with facial hair.
Yeah.
And one of them has a fishing rod.
Yes.
And he's hooked. Our lead guy, Hogar, and he's hooked him by the mouth, and he's reeling him in. So there's an image of one of the shirtless worm men.
That's it.
Reeling in Hemgar, and it's and with the lake behind them, it's kind of a really nice composition. And you're just like really, if you were to walk in on that,
I know
it's screening, and you're on acid,
I know,
and it's or you're at a party and someone's playing, it's like
I know.
Wow, you guys won. I mean, that's it.
Or you're the guy hired to change the air conditioner at the theater and the movie starts.
Or you're the guy who you're playing worm eaters and the air conditioner. It's like, all right, guys, I think you're all right. Just don't let it go get past 78. RPM. The heat. And he's like, hey guys, there's a movie playing. What's going on? And he's like, oh.
What you guys watching? Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they just like silently, quickly walks away.
Yeah.
Because he's watching 3 shirtless worm men.
Yep.
Reeling in a fourth man violently with a, fishing rod.
Right.
So, but actually, but that's the thing. Can we get into this? Like when I first saw this, when I was like 20 years old, I was enjoying it. But then right kind of in the middle, Hemgar just falls asleep, has not a dream, but he's visited by the 3 fishermen who Marcus was mentioning. You see them in the beginning, fully clothed, fully human.
Yeah.
And chatting, and then something bad happens, and they get infected by the special worms.
Oh.
And they visit Hemgar in the middle of the night, and he goes, like, basically a new mythology is established, and he's like, we are now worm people because of this and that. And now we want women. Each of us needs a worm woman, and you are going to provide it. And it's just like, wow, man. And I'll say this.
Yeah.
You get this film, you could criticize it. I respect that. In another person's mind, like, this is unacceptable, just garbage, stupid. But you can't say that it isn't unpredictable.
Yeah, certainly.
No way you could go like, oh, okay, and then it goes A, B, C, the plot.
Right. But how about this? Can we talk about what the fuck that white pus is that's coming out of the worm people? Because that's
it's out of it's like it's part of the growth spurt of the second half of you worming out. It's like this larval kind of like
pussy
secretion.
Yeah,
it's a pussy secretion of the larval growth. Yeah.
Wild.
And it's very vividly rendered.
Right.
And it's obviously like shaving cream being splashed through like someone's latex. Long Johns.
Or
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Cream cheese. Yeah. It's pretty gnarly. And that fucking was like, holy, that's pretty visceral. Seeing that, you're like, whoa. Now there's like white liquid protruding out of this, and like that.
Sometimes I was thinking of David Lynch's The Grandmother.
Sure,
his first long form film.
Shout out
from 1970. There are some moments that feel because he is kind of like also isolated and lonely.
Yeah.
And he makes his own person in the form of a grandmother, and it's like
singular man.
It's like he's growing things in his house.
Yeah, yeah.
The little boy and the
yes,
grandmother.
yes, totally.
So, you know,
one other thing that I thought too was I don't know, like the sort of the sort of something that I was poignant to me. It felt poignant,
Sure,
to some extent, given the context.
We're going to pull this out for Leo. You know,
just given the
poignant moment in the war meeting.
Well, it's like there's some poetry in the fact that
Explain yourself.
that
Hey, look who you're talking to. Let's go.
well, just that you know, by the end of the film, you know, Herb is you know, or Umgar is basically forced to eat his own worms. You know,
Yes.
he's pinned down, and
He's
that's
being
actually
force fed by the 3 shirtless worm men.
yeah, I know.
By the way, so the worm men,
Yeah, which is
so and then
Brilliant.
like we're cut to us like in straitjackets. Like,
Yeah, I know.
No. So then the half man, half worms, they were force feeding worms, and they made him do another big worm, and the worms. Are
yeah, I
wormy.
know. It's fucking crazy. But listen to this. So that happens, right? And you know,
That happens.
and it's probably one of the more gratuitous, violent. I know they're not worms aren't being harmed, but
Yes.
but just the action of stuffing this man's face, and it's not just one worm on the side of the mouth. It's
a large, full fistful of worms.
It's a fistful of
getting
worms.
smashed down into his mouth.
Yeah, right. Well, and this is the director of the film who's taking all of
Yes.
this, which I appreciate. And
It's
it
the
kind
only
of
way you
writer.
could probably
Like, he wrote-
cast someone in that
Well,
role.
this is what I was-
Like he wrote and directed that. Like,
hold on. This is what I was, you know, thinking about, because I'm thinking about, you know, like, you know, Vince McMahon, you know, doesn't ask wrestlers to do things that he wouldn't do, right? So
Right,
it's
okay.
that sort of principle of like he's gonna, you know, take the big worm shot in this film. But the thing is what I'm trying to imagine is like, you know, there are a lot of people who are putting worms in their mouth throughout this whole film, and this is not a big budget film. And I was just thinking of what is the interaction that this guy has with these people to explain the movie, what they have to do to get them to agree.
Marcus said something interesting
Consent.
to what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, this is Herb's vision, but it is produced by Ted
Sure. Okay.
Michaels. And I feel, as you were saying earlier, Marcus, about like a charismatic person like that, a leader like a Ted Michaels, like he probably, you know, like got everybody to get like amped up and excited and on board. Like, let's make a movie. Let's go.
Let's make something
Let's
fucking
make Herb's
nuts.
movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Okay.
I could see that, you know.
I don't know.
Like,
and it's shot okay. You know what I mean? Like it could be much worse shot by an insane person. You know, there's a
Sure. I agree.
It's not completely amateur.
No.
You know,
No.
It's not inept. It's not inept, you know, in the way it's shot. But it's just, you know, and then again, the other thing about it that really was like WTF is, again, I always go back to the half worm people because that's really where my shit is.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah,
man.
sure.
When the worm guy goes in to save the tied up woman, you know, the black woman in the house, and of course, you know, she has no reaction to the fact that a half man, half worm is coming to untie her, you know, and it's
yes, they get around by scurrying on the floor.
yeah, they're scurrying.
Obviously, how else could they?
And just that's just like she's just like you know, as that thing is untying hers. Pretty fucking out there, man. Sorry, that is some hardcore shit.
It's all about the worm men.
it's wild that
it
they
is.
were
The
able.
film.
Yeah, the film gives you another like sort of iconic image, lasting image, not just people eating worms. It gives you the worm man, which actually sticks with you more. In fact, you know,
Love
I was
the worm
thinking
man.
when I was watching it, I was really thinking about how, you know, you make these stories up when you're watching film of like, where did this film come from? And I was thinking like, oh, this came from, you know, there's the thing where they go, there's campers like hanging out at his house.
Of course.
And that made me think about the sleeping bag, you know, and how I was thinking that, you know, like Herb or whatever is camping, he's got the sleeping bag on.
Oh,
He's
it looks
I
like
could
a
make
worm.
a worm special
Me,
effect
I'm
out
a
of this.
worm.
Right. He's like, how can I make a whole movie out of this costume?
No,
you know?
totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally.
Because there is kind of a campground, like a very half-baked campground conceit. It's like, I love that too. Like there's this whole plot of like people are scheduling reservations to stay at his property.
Right, just out of town.
And it's like a bed and
camp.
breakfast.
It becomes like an Airbnb
Yeah,
horror
exactly.
film.
No, that's what I'm saying. And it's like, there's terms like they're expecting breakfast, and he's like, all right.
That
hold on.
was probably the most queasy part for me is when they're all demanding that he feed them, and I'm like, who would want to? Who would eat anything prepared by him?
That's the whole thing with this.
I know.
But to put a bookend on your moment about the guy flexing in the truck, too, great gag, of course, where the truck driver then runs over. We should say that, Herb as the half worm Herb version. He does
Sadly, we lose her.
We lose Herb.
Half Herb.
He gets run over by the truck, and then there's the brown worm goo that sprays. Nice
It's like
touch.
a bug on the windshield.
Bug on the windshield. Nice touch.
Well, but the thing is, Herb makes the most of that because to exhibit that he's been hit by this large truck, there's this lingering shot with his head covered in brown goo.
That's right.
Just rubbing his face against the windshield, like grotesquely, like
I know,
like brown goop. As his like nose and his lips are like smushing against the window. It's so fucking psychotic. That's pretty much your last image. Actually, the last image, pop quiz, the last image of the movie is a rose.
I know, of course. It has to be. It has to be. But something about that whole scene and this whole movie in general, it's like you can tell Herb was living his best life, making this film.
They had a ball.
They had a ball.
They looked like they had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
you're right. Good call.
Yeah. This doesn't seem like a tense set, there's no
acrimony
tension.
and
acrimony,
people quitting
and harsh conditions. Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a goof. It's a great spirit of all these C-list people like we were talking about earlier. It's that let's put on a show kind of energy.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just maybe the last thoughts here are like, this is me kind of remembering my youth of like seeking the highest high of dark, demented, WTF films. But it also, it's a testament to like a time when something like this really could exist, frankly.
And be distributed. Right. Yeah.
And play across the street from Star Wars. It fucking did.
Right.
I've seen papers,
Am I wrong? I felt like 77 felt kind of late for this kind of film, and like I felt like this would be like more of like a 72 or
it's
something.
Right towards the end.
It does feel like the last hurrah for this.
It is. That's a good call. Yeah, it's the last gasp of this stuff, and it's just Ted wanted to make it. Ted wanted to make his buddy's movie, and I could feel back to maybe what you were saying too. Is like it didn't look like a weird tense set or anything like that. It looked like everyone had a good time. There's actually a lot of warmth because I did listen to the commentary by Ted Michaels on the DVD. And he's obviously, he thinks Herb is funny. Yeah. And he like obviously loves Herb. And like and again, that's what I was trying to say. It's like, I always feel like these guys are all friends first who happen to once in a while go, one of us should probably throw together some stupid movie and keep having some money in the
Get the
bank.
band back together.
Yeah, exactly. And they just like, and they, all right, well, I'll help you out, and it's just this very warm. And that's what I mean by, maybe this is happening today somewhere. I don't know. But like this weird band of freaks who help each other out once in a while to make a movie that
I love
that could, like keep them afloat. And like no one's really thinking this is great art.
No.
But also people do care about it somewhat. But also just as much as anything, they just want to hang out together, and have fun. It's very sweet.
Yeah, and it feels like Herb must have been just like a very eccentric sort of dude. Obviously, came up with this movie and everything. And I think that they just like the idea of them coming together and wanting to see like his vision, through. Yeah, you can feel that through the movie, like giving him, this opportunity, and we're gonna all come together and help you realize this. And he does sort of remind me of like a Bruno-esque type of guy. Yeah. He kind of looks like him, and it's like it's almost like if you gave Bruno S. Carte blanche to make something. It's like almost you almost want to see Herzog off to the side making of Worm Eaters. How about that?
Worm Eaters.
How about that?
So there we go. We got some Herzog name dropping. That finally happened. Hit it. Yes. No, but you're so right, actually. I bet Herzog would have gotten a kick out of being on the set.
The worm eaters. Oh yeah, totally. He would have loved
sure.
it. He would have loved it.
You
He's eating his shoe and there's the worms and
Exactly.
great.
Marcus,
again-
these guys are like prolific too. You know, like they made a lot back to back, made a ton of movies.
Just another one.
They would open up in theaters. You know,
Yeah.
that you could, it is a time that just doesn't exist anymore.
It's
Yeah.
long gone. Well, it was gone in the 80s because they all,
Right.
like I said, they got stuck in SOV and then nothing at all.
Then nothing.
Well, he was making movies up until he died. I remember at the theater we were getting screeners for Ted V.
But
Michael.
the SOV stuff, you know.
I'm just saying, like in
Yeah.
addition to that,
scraping
he was
by.
making movies forever. Yeah.
Hey, how about the cool optical effects on the red ocean,
The lake.
the lake?
I caught that. Yeah,
That's
very
cool. They got a little optical in there, you know, for it. But Tom, you got one fucking minute left. Anything you want to add on to sum up your birthday pick?
nice. Not really. I mean, just looking at my notes, like I know this is for 99.9% of the public on planet Earth, this is a good old classic room clearer.
Yes.
And I remember at the 15-minute
Yeah.
mark of this movie,
Yep.
I looked at the clock and I went, this is where you lose
Everyone.
70% of the
Yeah. Right.
of 20 people, you know,
Right.
like it's just that kind of movie. And actually, I do wish I could have seen a screening.
I wish this
You
would
know,
play
yeah.
at Sundance like next year. Somehow
Dude,
we
seriously, I'd
figure that
love
out.
to have modern audiences deal with more meters,
yeah.
and see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. So
But just how did that go down for people? And I bet one psychotic, acid blasted hippie freak was probably like, "That was fucking awesome,"
Yeah,
like in the audience,
Right.
and everyone else is repulsed and like walking out silently.
yeah. Exactly.
But who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Never know.
Who knows?
It's a time. It's from the old days. This movie.
Yes.
We did it.
We did it.
The worm eaters.
It'd be impossible. Let's talk about worm eaters for one fucking hour.
It almost shows you can talk about anything for an hour here at one fucking hour.
There's a lot going on.
No,
in
there
Worm
is.
Eaters.
I'm staring
There
at.
really is.
I'm staring at notes. We didn't talk about. I hate Chinese food.
They look like Chinese food. I hate Chinese food.
We didn't get into
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You got a bowl of cock. We didn't talk about that. All
Oh,
right.
dude, the hardware store scene.
Yeah,
We're
we didn't-
cheating, but like,
Yeah, I know. We're cheating.
hardware store scene, dude. Very odd. Because they're like immigrants talking to immigrants and stuff.
That
It's
is interesting.
Worm noises,
Yeah. Oh.
the way they talk.
like, well, I'm glad you shouted out the sound design, Marcus, earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Official birthday boy cheat. And the last thing
Okay.
for us, these psychotic movies, if it didn't have aimless, atonal Moog synthesizer noodling, we were not fucking with it.
No.
Right? Because all of our movies
Yes.
in
Yes.
it had they all had to have aimless, psychotic, disturbing
Yes.
Moog synthesizer.
Boop, boop,
And
boop, boop, boop. There it does.
sometimes that happens
You
in
gotta get it. It's a
the
prerequisite.
worm eaters.
The worm
So,
eaters. There you go. That's one fucking hour on the worm eaters. Happy birthday, Tom. Hopefully that
Happy
satiated
Thank you, sir.
your
Thank you, sirs.
want to do it. Again, look, if you haven't watched the movie, you don't have to watch the movie. You're probably going to see a lot of the clips from here, but it's a strange trip if you're looking to investigate some of the hard stuff out there, and you want to get a taste
This
of
is
how extreme shit can get.
right on the horizon line of like the like next stop is like a Niagara Falls drop off to like the total abyss. This is just about at the edge.
Yeah, like snuff films are the next level.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go, everybody. Worm eaters, very fun.
I'm glad you guys got something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it
I
was.
really didn't know what to think.
It was. It is. I mean, completely repellent. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't. I didn't fast forward some of the eating sequences, but
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say some of the ethnic humor performances.
Yeah.
The large-breasted woman. With,
Yeah.
Let's make macaroni or whatever.
Just
Like,
worms in people's mouths are hardcore for me.
oh, well,
And sometimes,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you got through it.
sometimes, like I think there's even like some. I think like there's some like category 3, like Hong Kong films that have that in
Right.
it too.
Oh.
Mm.
Sorry.
Close up on
Second-
mouth. And stuff,
Second of 2 birthday boy cheats.
Okay.
What I love is this is one of those kinds of movies where I think Herb is like 4 out of 5 times he's the person eating the close-up of the worms.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably.
And sometimes like he has to put on this cheap black mustache to be another character. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah. Rather
Don't
than
you love
asking,
that, you know?
Yeah,
Like-
of course. Yeah.
Like that kind of,
Yeah. Very.
that's
like,
very John Waters.
It
like,
is. Yeah. Right. Right.
I'll just play all the people. Now I got a
Right.
mustache.
Right.
Now I got a sombrero. You know?
Yeah. Very singular. Okay. Love that. That's amazing. But that's it for the birthday episode 126 in the can.
Next up, Marcus. Next up, Evan.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to top that. I'm going to have to reach into the depths to figure out
Like a snuff
what's
film.
going to. Yeah, right, right, exactly. Okay, so what was I going to say? Okay, so next week, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So the what do we do? Well, next week is Valentine's Day, of course, and so I think we want to pick something that goes with the holiday and feels like a nice romantic film. And I recently rewatched this movie. I watched this movie for the first time. Very important. I'd never seen it. I had an idea of what it was in my mind, and this is a big, sort of cultural landscape film of the 80s or early 90s. It's 1990. I thought it was like, going to be this steamy romance film a la Dirty Dancing, and was just surprised to look at this movie, 35 years later, and just imagine that this was a big blockbuster and everyone was like crying at the end, and this got Oscar win. Did she win? I think
I'm not sure.
I think Whoopi might have won or was nominated.
But it was a phenomenon.
It was a phenomenon, and I'm just like, it's so how far we've come, in terms of what constitutes an awards film. But so anyway, it's funny to look back at this movie, and I think 'tis the season right now to do so. I was shocked at what this movie actually was, and we're talking about 1990s Ghost. Yes, we're going from the Worm Eaters to Ghost, starring Patrick Swayze
Naturally.
and Demi Moore, who of course is back in the business now with her film, and nominated for Best Picture, The Substance, which is crazy. But anyway, so we're gonna take a look at Ghost, and I think Raimi's going to join us, and we'll have a little fun for Valentine's Day next week.
Great.
And then
Sounds great.
and then I'm sure we'll do a couple other little films, here and there for February. We have a cool idea for March that we'll tell you as we get into it. Something we've been kind of teasing for a while.
Big concept coming up.
Big high concept for March. So stay tuned for that. Of course, the One Fucking Hour Patreon. Again, patreon.com/onefuckinghour is where you guys can go to sign up to support the show. It's just $5 a month. You get access to all of our bonus eps, as I mentioned, and 24-hour early access to all the eps. Love to see you over in the Patreon, or you can become a Momen on the YouTube channel by going to our channel homepage and clicking the join button if you want to support us in either platform. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I guess, guys, we can't leave people. What's going to be?
I know.
You have to think about this one. But we can't leave you without your Momen of Zen. All right, everybody.
I mean, how do you make a moment for a movie that's all moment?
I don't know. You have to go in a different direction, I guess. I guess so. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And we'll see you next week for Ghost. Take care. Have a good rest of your week. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Tell us about the good old days, Ted. The good old days? Yeah, a long time ago. Well, what is there to say? Tell us what you did. What'd I do? Well, I used to ride horses and movies and shoot at flaming arrows and so on like that. Did you hurt anyone? Well, I shot a few people and so on like that. You did? Yeah, I did. And did ventriloquism? What's that? Ventriloquism with a dummy, like you. What? Yeah, like you. Don't call me that. Well, what can I say, Tom? And I did magic tricks and sawed ladies in half and chopped their heads off in guillotines and so on. You did? Yeah, I did all that.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef. That was wicked, man.